Hey guys, it's Lord Sendo here. I've talked a lot about what I want to see in Deepwoken and what I'm excited for. There are many mechanics in the game which make it interesting, but I want to focus this video on what I'm worried about in Deepwoken and what I don't want to see in the game. Don't get me wrong, the outlook on the game overall is great, but that doesn't mean that the game can't have issues on release. Before I get into this video, I'm going to ask you guys to consider subscribing to my channel. It allows me to make Deepwoken content daily. The first thing I want to talk about might be a little bit controversial, as in, some of you guys might disagree with my take. In a tweet a month ago, Ragusa was asked whether guilds have player limits, and he said no. I have an immediate problem with this. In Rogue Lineage, what big houses used to do was they would get all of their house to join the same server, and make it so that everyone in the server was part of the house, so there was no risk of dying from players. This shouldn't be as big of a problem in Deepwoken, because there isn't going to be any ways to progress from boosting. It still ruins the immersion, knowing that big guilds can just flood a server and being at no risk of being attacked by other players. Popular YouTubers and other people who have influence over the game will be able to make massive guilds. For example, Agamatsu's Marine Guild has enough players to fill over 30 servers in Deepwoken. And in my opinion, that kind of ruins the purpose of guilds. Your guild should be a group of people who you know will protect you at any moment. A group of people who you're willing to fight with and go on adventures with. If your guild is just sitting in a server only with NPCs, then you're not going to really face any real adversity, and it'll kind of ruin the experience of the game. In my opinion, Ragusa should cap guilds limits at 100 players. The next thing I want to talk about is NPCs. So far, from what we've seen in Deepwoken and what people have been saying, the NPCs are incredibly smart. But I'm still a little bit apprehensive about NPCs in Deepwoken. The reason I'm a little bit concerned is because we know that you can progress to max build just by fighting NPCs and not fighting players. You could hypothetically become the strongest player in the game without even seeing another player. This isn't a bad thing on its own. In fact, I kind of like it because it allows solo players to have some ways to progress without having to fight outnumbered and disadvantaged. Where the problem lies is that if people find a way to cheese NPCs, then you can effectively progress without struggling at all. You can't cheese players for too long. If they see what you're doing and they realize it, then they're just going to change their tactics to adapt to your playstyle. But if an NPC has a flaw in its script, then it won't adapt at all. It will just keep on making the same mistake over and over again. You can see this in a lot of unoptimized Roblox games, where you're on the other side of a wall and the NPCs will keep on trying to jump over, even though they've tried 10 times and they still don't have the height to jump over it. This was just an example, and Deepwoken is obviously not going to be that unoptimized. The NPCs in Deepwoken actually have great pathing, but it's small oversights in the script that can actually ruin the game. There might be bugs like where players can use Gale Breath ragdoll moves to push enemies out of the zones that they're meant to be in. The huge problem with a flaw like this is that it allows people to progress without actually fighting the way that the game was meant to be intended. That's why Ragusa and Archmage need to spend a lot of time testing for flaws in the NPC's codes, or you'll see a lot of boosted monkeys trying to abuse glitches like these. The best example that I can think of in Rogue was in K, with the dungeons with the Dristinis where you would farm insight. People would just open the door and then attract all of the NPCs, and then they would run out the door immediately so that the NPCs would trap behind, and use Ignis behind the wall, and basically kill them for free without having to actually fight them. Imagine that, but that was your main way of progressing and actually getting your equivalent of a class in Deepwoken. That would be busted. There are a lot of other things in Deepwoken that I'm looking out for that I'm potentially concerned about, but those are the two things that were really important to me. If you want to see a continuation of this video, then please let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching and peace out.